So this is my first official animation on this channel, so I thought I would talk about my absolute favorite cartoon of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is truly a fantastic show, but of course it's coming from me. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I mean, it's pretty popular, but I know there are a lot of people out there that would dismiss it because it's not new, or they just won't watch it because it's a cartoon. Originally, this entire video was meant to be just for those guys, the people that hadn't seen it yet, because I didn't want them to miss out. But I found out the hard way that it's easier said than done to get these guys on board. For instance, I begged my friend for years to watch it, and he wouldn't give in, no matter what I said. The only time he saw a glimpse of it was when he came over to my place and I randomly put it on. He got through the first 10 minutes and got bored, so we started watching something else instead. And I thought that was it, after all this time trying to show him how good this show was, and he doesn't seem to like it, but I can't be upset, because at least he tried it out. And who knows, maybe something about the preview might bring him back to watch the rest of the show some other day. But then, for some completely unknown reason, probably a girl he likes, he decided to watch the movie. What? Even I haven't seen the movie yet, and that's because I love the show too much. Anyways, after this I knew that there was no coming back, that there was no way he was ever going to watch Avatar again. So I unfriended him. I'm just kidding. But I shouldn't be, because that was 8 years ago, and to this day Avatar still holds up as an amazing show, and he still hasn't watched it yet. But that being said, I did get him onto Game of Thrones a couple years back, so maybe there's still some hope for him. But I guess after watching season 8 he probably unfriended me. Regardless, making a TV show recommendation without spoilers of any kind, even in the pictures behind me, is bland. So I'm just gonna simply say, if you haven't seen it yet, or you have only seen a bit of it, and you have the means and interest to try it out, I definitely recommend it. And that's it. But you should probably leave this video right now. It's not that I don't want you to stay or anything, but the rest of this clip is going to be just for the fans, and I would hate myself if I spoiled the show for you. Alright, so there are many reasons to love Avatar, but for me, what gives it such an edge is the respect factor. There's so much to respect about it that I just can't think of many shows that can really compete with it. Each episode of the series has something important you can learn from it, if you can be open to it. Let me give you an example. In season 1 there's an episode called The Great Divide, and it's perhaps the most irrelevant episode in the entire series. By that I mean that you could watch the whole series, skip The Great Divide, and pretty much miss nothing, as this episode doesn't have much impact to the overall story. So you might be thinking, well, this is a pretty useless episode that's not really worth watching, right? Nope, absolutely not. This episode in fact is so relevant to our social and political climate that it is crazy that not many people talk about it more often. It's not like it's teaching you anything out of the blue or unheard of or anything like that, but the fact that it highlights issues and lessons so clearly and delivers it to a younger audience for perspective is a tremendous feat, and not one that should be understated. It wasn't necessary to the whole story, but it was necessary to teach people about, and it's stuff like this that really makes this series shine for me. But like I said, this is just an example, but you can go through any episode and find nuggets of wisdom that they relentlessly drop throughout the series, which I love about this show. But let's say the lessons aren't what you're into the show for. Still, the story is pretty awesome, and the emotional journeys and subtle side stories totally make this show worth it. And on top of that, they were also able to incorporate bending and non-bending skills, spirits, and the spirit world into this story universe without it seeming too far-fetched, but also making it look incredibly cool at the same time. It seems like an impossible feat, that they managed to cram in so much into the short series and into each episode that it really blows me away. Even these days, after years of watching it and thinking about it, this show continues to inspire me, and I can't seem to shake that feeling. I remember that after watching the first season for the first time, I was certain that it could be one of the greatest movies ever made if it was ever turned into one someday. And I thought that if I was ever worthy to do so, I would need to deliver it the respect it deserves. I know that sounds kind of weird, but when I think about it, it is one of the longest standing goals that I've had since being in high school. It's something that I'll still like to do if I could earn it, but that's for another time. For now, I want to talk about the show some more. Now I know a lot of YouTube channels cover the characters, bending, non-bending, and the spiritual side of the Avatar series, which I love and I want to cover as well, but that upload will be massive when it comes out, so for this clip I just want to focus on the more hidden gems in the series, because I feel like they deserve some attention and respect as well. Immersion. The small details can really make a difference sometimes. When an artist is obsessing over a particular part of the work, you kinda watch and wonder why they're putting so much effort into this specific section of their work. It's like they're touching up the finished product, but they're nowhere near done yet. But as they progress, their idea becomes more realized and their obsession becomes clearer. You see this a lot in Avatar. There's so many scenes where they almost take a few seconds to just set the theme and just let it soak in. A lot of pensive movies and shows do this, but I like that it's in a cartoon. It's sorta rare from what I've seen, but it can really build the immersion in the story if it's done well. But immersion can go well beyond scenery. It works on an emotional level too, and Avatar do this so effectively with their characters that you almost don't realize just how little screen time each impactful character gets. Think about it. How many times do they bring in new characters that you only see for just one episode and never revisit again? almost always, but how they do it is so impactful that you feel that you can really get to grips with these characters and the world that they live in. And it is usually comprised of the small details that run alongside the main story that turn out to be really powerful when set up well. It often makes the episode feel like it's got more depth, that it feels more alive and more relatable, which makes the emotional response that it gets that more meaningful. It is something that can be difficult to pull off on repeat, but Avatar continues to surprise me. Sequels. Second seasons, but more often than not, sequels are hard to nail. Most of the time they try to outdo their first attempt by making things bigger and flashier than normal, but it sometimes misses the grip that they held earlier. Sequels may raise the stakes and glam things up a bit, but as a result, it often feels less personal and not as relatable as the first. That's usually why people don't like them as much, because they seem too artificial or too disconnected. Avatar is different, it almost reverses this trend. Second season sees almost all the main characters get an inward journey perspective, where they are constantly tested and pushed to the limits, where we see a side of them that makes them more complex and more intriguing as it pulls all these heartstrings. This is where we can really get to grips with the characters on a personal level, and this is what makes the second season of Avatar a real treasure. If one person's second season journey comes to mind for most fans, I reckon it would be Zuko's. It is punishing and heartbreaking, even for those around him, but it is one of the most beautifully told perspectives that I've seen on TV. The Tales of Ba Sing Se episode is so heartfelt that it almost makes me cry in reruns, and I'm a stone cold asshole. Not only do we see a brief view of the personal talents and struggles that each character needs to live with and persevere through, but how can you possibly make it through everyone's story and Iroh's tale without breaking down completely? Each character gets so much depth in this season that it blows my mind that the creators were able to think and plan for all these emotional roller coasters in a single season, which is an amazing feat. Also an honorable mention, Aang's dark side and journey to hope. He's one of the most loving characters in the show, and we get to see a glimpse of just how far he lives by those that he loves and what he can turn himself into if he is pushed too far. Meta. I know that this can be taken and manipulated in many ways, but do you feel that the seasons were pretty meta? I mean, go back to what Iroh teaches Zuko in Bitter Work and apply it to each season. It sorta makes sense, right? Book 1 Water has the gang travel to the host nations and territories, barely making it alive from wherever they visit, but it also shows them adapting to each scenario by being creative and trusting in each other to get them through each day. At this early stage, the characters also get a taste of love and infatuation, which is something that definitely gets cultivated and evolves throughout the season and the others. But among all this, there's a sense of community and teamwork wherever they go, and in each situation they find themselves in, they always find a way to adapt and just flow with it, especially in this first season where they're just finding their bearings in the world. Trust and love are big themes in Season 1, important motivators that push people to act the way that they do, and sometimes it's obvious and in your face, and sometimes it's deceptive and misleading, but in other times, it shows you just an underlying glimpse of it, just to remind you that trust and love are both complicated and complex, but they connect people in mysterious ways, even through time. Book 2 Earth is enduring. It is bitter work. I know I talked about it a bit already, so I won't go through it that much here, although I really want to and could, but the season brutally tests and tempers each character that by the end, you get what endures. You get the character that perseveres throughout the struggle, the one that is strengthened by its hardships. But this doesn't mean that all hope for change is lost. It often means quite the opposite sometimes. It shows that the characters are more complex than what we give them credit for, and hope is something that they cultivate and depend on, something that pulls them through their own journey and keeps them alive. Season 2 sees the characters bear and wither their hardships, but because of this, it allows them to endure their obstacles. Book 3 Fire is the realization of purpose and destiny. It is also about the weight of life. Many characters experience this theme throughout the season, but one episode in particular dedicates itself to this belief, the Avatar and the Fire Lord. Here we see a much needed backstory to Roku and Sozin, and sets the context for the future that lies ahead for our main characters, and the world that they live in. It shows the struggles that lies within friendships, philosophy, desire, and destiny, and essentially pits the teams going to the finale. I know that the gang always knew that they had to defeat the Fire Lord somehow, but this episode really lights apart the head for Zuko, to not only deny and betray everything he thought he wanted, but for the gang to accept him later on, even though it feels quite in the moment when it eventually happens. Fire is described as a passion and a drive to achieve your ambitions, which often leaves our characters second-guessing the things that they really want to fight for, and for some, this decision gives them focus and strength. For others, it highlights their vulnerabilities, which might actually break them. Book 3 also tempers characters, but unlike the brutality of Season 2, which focuses on inner strength and hope when you are lost, it is more about the philosophy of mind and destiny, choosing your purpose and path ahead of you,
I'm not gonna end it like this.
I'm going to join the Avatar.
and facing the realities that come with it. I've said this a million times, but I love this show. I think it does wonders, aimed at a younger audience, but giving them a perspective that hopefully translates to a more harmonious world for all. Guidance is crucial for everyone, and there are a handful of shows and movies that take this job seriously, but also seems to be well informed in their beliefs as well. This show feels thoughtful, and I think that it tries to share the importance of this ability to its viewers, an ability that makes us much more wiser, but also better able to analyze the world ahead of us in the hopes that we choose a better destiny and purpose for ourselves, rather than the ones that are constantly advertised to us. I feel like the show does something special, something typically outside the realm that their peers dabble with, but something much needed for their target audience: perspective. If we start giving the younger generations the respect that they deserve, and stop treating them like they're helpless, they will surprise everyone with what they can accomplish. If we start taking them seriously and giving them the tools to build a better future than the one that my and older generations left before them to inherit, they might actually be able to fix the mistakes that we were either too negligent or incapable to do anything about. They need to be better than us. They need to be smarter than us. All we can really do is equip them properly for the future. We kinda need to be like Iroh, and they sorta need to take up the mantle of the gang, because the world will soon be in their hands, and it will be their responsibility to change it for the better. Now you might be thinking, dude, settle down, it's just a cartoon. Why are you getting so philosophical about this? You're blowing this whole thing out of proportion. And maybe I am, but if you're not inspired about anything, it's kinda hard to philosophize and learn new perspectives. Sharing ideas makes us wiser, depending on what you share, of course. But context and intent mean a lot, and I feel like there's so much depth to this series with the intent to amaze, learn, and inspire. And for me at least, it worked. Now before I finish this off, I want to get into some quick facts, or at least I think they are. I don't know if these facts are legit, but you pick things up during reruns, so maybe there is some truth to them, I don't know. First up, did you guys notice anything weird between the episode with Mang and any episode with Toph? Are the Beifongs the only characters with surnames in this series? Is the treasure that Zuko lifted from the Sunbury Temple an egg? Does it contain his future dragon companion? Now, I do have a lot of questions about the series that are still not answered from what I believe, but maybe that's a good thing. Mysteries only stay mysteries if they can't be specified. But in terms of the future, like Korra, I do want to do an episode on that as well, because there is a lot to explore and theorize there as well. For instance, I remember talking to my brother about a rogue airbender that would use their abilities for stealth and to suffocate people, which came to my mind because the dark side of airbending wasn't really explored in the first series, as it was commonly assumed that airbenders were a peaceful culture. And then, many years later, Korra releases, and by the time we get to season 3, we get Zahir, who happens to be one of my favorite villains of the whole franchise. I want to talk about these sort of theories and things a lot more, but this clip is already too long, so I'm just finishing it off here. Sorry, I had to really put that in. It just perfectly summarized how good I am at lip syncing. I mean, just for a bit of context, this was supposed to be a 2019 upload. Like mid-2019. Anyway, this is my first end card for an animation, so I have absolutely no idea what to put here, but I do appreciate you guys making it all the way here. I do have a couple uploads in mind, and I'll make sure that they don't take a year's time to go up on the channel. Anyway, thanks for coming by, thanks for watching, and take care. Alright, it's over.
No, it's not over.
But you know, feel free to leave if you want though. It is more about the philosophy of mind and destiny, choosing your purpose and path ahead of you.
You struggled, you suffered, but you have always followed your own path.
All I want now is to play my part in ending this war. And I know my destiny is to help you restore balance to the world.
No, I'm not gonna end it like this.
When I was a boy, I had a vision that I would one day take Ba Sing Se. Only now do I see that my destiny is to take it back from the Fire Nation, so the Earth Kingdom can be free again.
My own mother thought I was a monster.
I think you're confused. All your life you've used fear to control people, like your friends May and Ty Lee.
Well, what choice do I have? Trust is for fools. Fear is the only reliable way.
We need to destroy their hope.
No bender will stand a chance against us. And out of the ashes, a new world will be born. A world in which all the lands are Fire Nation, and I am the supreme ruler of everything.
And facing the realities that come with it.
You can't treat me like this. You can't treat me like Zuko. I deserve to be by your side.
Azula! Even with all the power in the world, you are still weak. One spirit must be unbendable, or you will be corrupted and destroyed. What did you do to me?
I took away your firebending. You can't use it to hurt or threaten anyone else ever again. Okay.
Now!
It's over.